The Underground King. Yeah, he's back freaking at it. Eddie Alvarez, December 2nd, BKFC, a pay-per-view. Mike Perry. Eddie, this is a grudge match at middleweight. Gloves off. I'm fired the hell up. How did this fight come together?
It was a fight I talked about Dave Feldman with since I joined BKFC. I thought originally it was Mike Perry was going to be the opponent originally, not Chad Mendez. But Mike got his opponent in Luke Rockhold, and they decided to make it me, Chad, him, and Luke. Kind of made it a beefier, bigger card altogether. So the fight never happened originally, but we got it the second time around. So something we've been looking forward to. Love the opponent. I think the fans love the fight, and they're right where we should be at.
Well, look, you debuted against Chad Mendes in a fantastic fight over 5 rounds in which you ate a few in an Eddie Alvarez style, came back and showed us what you're all about. Mike won that same night against Luke Rockhold, so it seems in some ways only natural that the two stars would advance forward. When you think about the idea of going bare knuckle with Mike Perry, I mean, this is sort of what he's made for. Does that change this equation at all? Because not everybody's a dog like you, but this guy can bark, man.
Yeah, I think he does well in these kind of fights. And even in MMA, he would try to drag his opponents in these kind of fights. You know what I mean? It's kind of his style. The cage isn't so big. It was a 22-foot or 23-foot or something like that. Not cage, but ring isn't so big. But this is what I do. I was born and raised in Philadelphia and Kensington. If anybody looks up Kensington or Googles Kensington, that's what we do. I'm Philadelphia. I didn't put on gloves until I was 100 fights deep in street fights. So, street fighting is kind of what I did before I ever put on a set of gloves and started trying to do this professionally. So, I never minded it. This is my kind of fight just as much as his. So, I'm interested in seeing how I'll do.
When you two had the first press conference to announce this fight and you had a face-off that turned into what looked like a joking but kind of serious, but ridiculous but kind of fun, but also real body shots back and forth, was that fooling around, or did it flirt a little bit with like, all right, get off me?
No, I think we were just kind of feeling around. Mike's been doing that, I think, everywhere he goes. I don't know if that's a thing he does or what goes on, but I think he's been punching guys and they punch him back. We didn't do enough rounds to kind of let it heat up to a degree where it would become competitive, but it was fun enough to get everybody going, and I had fun with it.
Now, look, he's got a lot of respect for you. I just talked to him earlier today, actually. He did out of nowhere interrupt me on a different line of questioning and just go, oh, you know what? Eddie Alvarez is a fucking liar. And then he went down a road. But it's Mike Perry, so you never really know at this point. How do you gauge his emotional state? You know he's dangerous in there, but like, is he in on the joke, or is he a wild man? How do you see him?
I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think that his feelings are disingenuous. I respect Mike Perry. We're kind of on the same path, right? He fights for a living. It's difficult to make money, and it's a very competitive sport, very competitive job, very hard to make a living doing this. He's managed to do it. I've managed to do it. So anybody who's doing it and on that path, I respect. On the flip side of that, I don't hate him or have any animosity toward him. For 10 minutes on December 2nd, I'm going to do everything I can to end this fucking guy. Everything in my power to put him away, separate him from consciousness, and completely hurt him really bad. Other than that 10 minutes, I don't give a shit. Mike's a great guy. I wish him the best. I just wish him terrible things for about 10 minutes on December 2nd. That's it.
Oh, it's going to be the best 10 minutes of our combat year if it goes the way I think it will, Eddie. What did you think of what he did to Luke Rockhold?
I think anybody who kind of knows the sport, knows bare knuckle, and then also knows MMA, the style matchup was fix for Mike. You know, Luke's never been somebody to punch or a heavy puncher or knockout artist. Punching, he's never been known for that. Luke's always been known for kicks and jujitsu. That they've been his main two staples. So I think he joined Bare Knuckle. He collected a decent check, and he went on his way. And I don't think he was. I think he was okay with doing the damage, but not okay with taking it. So it was apparent pretty quickly when you watch the fight, the momentum of it and where it was headed. Very fast, very fast.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate representation of what happened there. In your fight, which was your debut against a very game fighter who had a little bit of experience in Chad Mendes, what do you take away from your first fight from the standpoint of like adapting to the rule set and the strategy, and also, you know, what went wrong in there at times?
Yeah, it's a volatile sport. You can't be certain about anything. So like you pretty much got to go in there with your preparation, believe and trust in your coaches and the Lord, and then you got to surrender to the fight gods, because you got to go in there and let it all go, because every punch could be your last, every entrance or every exchange could be your last. So you got to treat it that way, eyes wide open, alert, and it's a full out sprint. So it's everything I love and am made for. So, you know, it's a sprint. You got to have eyes on for 10 minutes, fully alert for 10 minutes, and let the fight gods do their job, claim the victor.
I love the way you say that, the fight gods. Eddie, you're a lot tougher than me, which means you've taken a lot more fists than I have. You've delivered a lot more than you've taken. But how do you compare being hit in a bare knuckle match compared with being hit 4-ounce gloves in MMA, compared with being hit? I'm sure you've done a million rounds sparring with boxing gloves. What is the difference in pain level, everything?
Well, pain in a fight doesn't really exist. I don't feel a thing when I'm in a fight. Usually your adrenaline's so high, you're so focused and present, you don't feel a single thing. Getting hit or choosing to catch punches and do that is probably not a good idea in bare knuckle. It's more done in boxing, where you can catch punches because you have some padding. Bare knuckle, I think the better style is the way Europeans do it. It's sort of a fencing style or karate style, where you're in and out, you're on your toes, and you're playing tag, you're it. I think bare knuckles more, that should be the style of it, rather than taking shots and giving shots. So I think that should more be the style, as well as there isn't really a difference. You should never take a shot, not in MMA, not in bare knuckle, not in boxing. If you can avoid it at all costs, you avoid it. But I would say personally, punch from MMA that has almost a cast on the hand is almost fully casted with a piece of 4-ounce leather on top of that, would actually be harder. You would feel more of a thud and an impact from the casting than you would bare knuckle. But bare knuckle, if you get hit with it, you're more likely to suffer cuts and lacerations because of that. So it has its pros and cons.
That's an interesting way to look at it. When you had your breakthrough debut win the same night Mike Perry beats Rockhold, that night set up this night coming December 2nd. But Conor McGregor, your old buddy, parachuted in, and it was like a big moment for the promotion, the brand, whether or not that means they could ever get Conor under contract. Was that okay on your end, that he's kind of just lingering and crashed the party? And then, you know, that's all the headlines for a lot of the next day.
I don't think it was a crash of the party. I think it helped make the party. We had Conor there. We had Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje, Trevor Whitman. We had Conor McGregor. I mean, the list goes on. And I think that just proves that it's like MMA fighters, the UFC, and all these other promotions is where all the athletes in the world go to be entertained, right? Football players, baseball players, basketball, they go to UFC to be entertained. Where do the fighters go to be entertained? they go to bare knuckle. So it's like there's levels to it. And fighters also want to be entertained, but we're desensitized by boxing and MMA. There's too many rules. We go to bare knuckle to be entertained. That's where we get our rocks off. So it was good to see the highest level of martial artists around the ring watching bare knuckle that night and being thoroughly entertained.
Do you think Conor would adjust quickly to this game?
I think he has a good style for it just because, like I said, that fencing style where you're in and out and you're not taking shots to give shots, you're not that kind of, not like Mexican fighting. I wouldn't say that that's conducive for bare knuckle. I think that bouncy back and forth tag your it style makes for a very good bare knuckle fighter. So Conor has that style. I think he'd adapt well and do well. Just a matter if he's able to, if he's, able to get a contract and make something happen.
Well, speaking of contracts, Mike, I mean, not Mike, Eddie Alvarez, the king here, indulge the fan in me. I don't know what your plans are for April, but when we fill time on podcasts and have fun with what's the best card you can make for UFC 300 in April, I got this great idea that you just fight Michael Chandler a third time on there. Can that legally happen? Would you want that to happen? Where do you sort of stand as a free agent / bare knuckle fighter?
I'll fight anywhere in the world. I don't anything can happen with me. I mean, as far as bare knuckle, I'm BKFC all day. I'm not like this is where I want to be at. This is the only game in town for me. But if an offer came through with like a very large name, I'm sure I'd sit down with Dave Feldman and me and him would, talk and work something out in that manner. But it's got to be something big and it's got to be beneficial toward bare knuckle. I want to help grow this sport. I really feel like it's the next big thing. And it's kind of where my mindset right now. But that doesn't say something can't distract me and me and Dave sit down and make something fun happen.
So this trilogy idea that the old school Bellator fan in me is all pumped up about, you're saying, hey, why don't we just do it under bare knuckle in like a year or two or something, maybe.
He's interested in Conor. The last thing that guy wants to do is fight me. I've been trying to fight him. Wherever I go, he goes later on. I called Mike Chandler directly. I found his number. I called him directly when we were both free agents. And I pitched him the idea of me and him walking in the office together and selling our third fight to every promotion.
Hell yeah.
And seeing who paid us the most. And I think that would have been the most beneficial for both of us. And he agreed with me. He thought it was a great idea, and I never heard from him again. So
all right. Well, if they called you and offered Dustin Poirier rematch, Gaethje rematch, I mean, I'm down for all this, because you do realize that even though you have a reputation for making great fights in basically every promotion ever, and you've won a world title in most of those promotions, when I talk about like this lightweight era in the UFC over like the last 5-7 years, where it's literally the best action fighters of all time who also happen to be elite champions and great ones, like you, Gaethje, Chandler, Poirier, RDA, Conor at some point, like you all converted in the same space at the same time, Tony Ferguson, and made some of the craziest fights we've ever seen. Do you ever think of it in those terms? Like, fuck yeah, man, I'm part of that group. I am that group.
Yeah, I think if you watch a documentary on Netflix, it's called The Four Kings, and it was Hagler, Hearns, Duran, and Sugar Ray. And these four guys ripped each other apart for a few years. And, they were known as the Four Kings of that era. In that they all fought each other. They all went after each other, made each other better. So, something very similar in, me, Justin, Dustin, Chandler, and the guys you name, where we kind of pushed each other to another level and try to rip each other apart here and there. So it was fun.
Absolutely. And you were the first man that stopped that caveman version of Justin Gaethje, right?
You tell me.
I think you
got
him before Poirier did. You had to walk through the deepest levels of hell to get through that. So we know all you've accomplished. Quickly in closing here, I think it's the end of Bellator after a pretty damn good run that's produced so many great fighters, and we can still argue to this day whether you might be the greatest I've ever seen. And that's no disrespect to Chandler, the Pitbulls, all that. Is it hard? Is it okay? That's business. That's in the past. Do you have any feelings if this is the final show this weekend?
No, I think I had ups and downs at Bellator. I learned a lot. Not just building, helping build a promotion, or starting off when I was young as a champion of I would say like a startup promotion or a startup company, and seeing how they ran their business. It made me kind of realize and see later on down the road when I signed with promotions, I got to quickly see like if they were running their business correctly or if it was sustainable, because I seen Bellator do it and I seen the way they ran, and I knew like this is probably the way you stay alive and you stay in this sport. So I learned with them, even us suing each other, us having that stint of suing each other. I learned a lot about the business of fighting and the business of MMA, how it works, and it helped me kind of teach my teammates and other upcoming people in MMA like how to be careful and how to be a better businessman in the sport of MMA.
Yeah, good stuff.
So
right
I'm
there.
thankful and I'm grateful for it all.
I appreciate that perspective after everything you've been through. And I don't know if that's the end of the brand. It might be, it might not be. They had a good run just the same. Eddie, we'll see you back December 2nd, Salt Lake City, BKFC pay-per-view. Mike Perry, good Lord, I can't wait for this. Thank you for your time. Stay healthy. Let's bang. You know what I mean? Let's get after it, right?
Thank you, fellas. I appreciate you guys having me. I'll see you December 2nd, Salt Lake City, baby.